it was an ordinary room, like any other, except for one of the walls was covered with small files of index cards. They were like the ones the libraries used to list books by title or author in alphabetical order. But these files, which stretched endlessly from floor to ceiling in either direction, they had different headings. As I drew near the wall of files, the first one that I noticed was the one that read, "People I have liked." I opened it and began flipping through the cards. I quickly shut it, realizing that I had recognized the names written on each one. And then, without being told, I knew exactly where I was. This room, with its small files, was a catalog system for my life. Here were written the actions of my every moment, big and small, in detail my memory could not match. A sense of wonder and curiosity, along with fear and dread, had stirred within me as I began to open random files and explore the cards. Some brought joy and sweet memories. Others brought a sense of shame and regret so intense I would look over my shoulder to see if anyone was watching. A file named "Friends I Had Trusted" was next to one marked "Friends I Had Betrayed." The title cards ranged from the ordinary to the outright weird. Books I have read, lies I have told, comfort I had given, jokes I laughed at. Some were so precise in their hilariousness that I almost had to laugh like things I've yelled at my brothers. Others I couldn't laugh at. Things I've done in my anger. Things I've muttered under my breath at my parents. Each file contained surprises. Often there were many more cards than I expected. Sometimes fewer than I'd hoped. I was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the life I had lived. Could it be possible that I had the time in my 54 years to write each of these thousands, possibly millions of cards? Yet each card confirmed the truth. Each card was written in my own handwriting. Each signed with my own signature. When I pulled out a file marked "Songs I've Listened to," I realized that each file grew with its contents. The cards were packed tightly, yet after 2 or 3 yards, I had not reached the end of the file. I was so ashamed, I shut it. Not so much because of the quality of music, but because of the vast amount of time that I knew it represented. When I came to a file marked "Lustful Thoughts," I felt a chill run through my body. I pulled the file out, just an inch. I was afraid to test its size. I drew out a single card, and I shuddered at what was written there in detail. I felt sick to think that such a moment had been recorded. Suddenly, I felt an animal rage welling up inside. One thought dominated my mind. No one must ever, ever see these cards. No one must ever see this room. I have to destroy them. In a moment of insanity, I yanked out the file. It didn't matter how big it was. I had to empty it and burn the cards. I took one end and I pounded it on the floor. But it was no use. The cards were packed so tightly, there was no way to get them out. In one desperate attempt, I pried out one of the cards, only to find that it was as strong as steel when I tried to tear it. I felt defeated and utterly hopeless. And I put the file back in its slot. I let out a sigh of self-pity as I leaned my forehead against the wall. And then I saw it. The title read, People I Had Shared the Gospel With. The handle was brighter than those around it. It was newer, almost unused. I pulled on the handle. A small box, only 3 inches long, fell out. I could count its cards in one hand. Then came the tears. I thought about the overwhelming shame of it all, and I fell to my knees and wept. The sobs were so deep, they hurt my stomach and shook through my body. The rows of files were swirling in my tear-filled eyes. I thought, no one must ever, ever know of this room. I'd have to lock it up and hide the key. But then, as I brushed the tears away, I saw him. No, please, not him, not here. Oh, anyone but Jesus. I watched helplessly as he opened the files and began to read the cards. I couldn't bear to watch his response. But in the moments that I could bring myself to look at his face, I could see a sorrow even greater than my own. He seemed to go to the worst boxes. Oh, why did he have to read every card? Finally, he turned and looked at me from across the room. He looked at me with pity and sorrow in his eyes. I dropped my head and covered my face with my hands as I cried. He walked over and put his arm around me. He could have said so many things, but he didn't say a word. He just cried with me. Then he got up and walked back to the wall of files. He started at one end of the room and took out a file, and one by one on each card, he began to sign his name over mine. No, I shouted as I rushed him. All I could think to say was no, as I ripped the card from him. His name shouldn't be on these cards. But there it was, written in red. So dark, so rich, so alive. The name of Jesus had covered mine. It was written with his blood. He gently took the card back. He smiled a sad smile and began to sign the cards. I'll never understand how he did it so quickly. But it seemed like the next instant, I heard him close the last file and walk back to my side. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "It is finished." I stood up. He led me out of the room. There was no lock on the door. There were still cards to be written.